This is the Times of India Health Plus podcast. It's where we explore specially curated conversations, wellness trends, and lifestyle tips from the TOI newsroom. Stay informed, stay healthy.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Kamini Mathai. Today, we're going to talk about muscle loss, a condition called sarcopenia, once thought to affect only the elderly. Here's the twist though, it's not just an old age problem anymore. Sarcopenia is increasingly showing up in younger people too, and it's not just about feeling weaker. Ignored, the muscle loss can lead to falls, disability, and a loss of independence. It's such a big concern today that the Geriatric Society of India just released the country's first ever guidelines to help doctors catch and treat muscle loss early. With us today is Dr. Nitin Kapoor, Professor and Head of the Department of Endocrinology, Diabetes and Metabolism at Christian Medical College, Vellore, who's done extensive research on sarcopenia. Welcome, Dr. Kapoor. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kamini. Looking forward to this.
Okay, so for listeners who are hearing this term for the first time, sarcopenia, Dr. Nitin, if you could just explain to us what exactly it means and why it's sort of different from just getting weaker with age.
Right. So I think that's a very, very important question to start with. And if I say weakness, weakness could be of bones, weakness could be of the heart, weakness could be just simply at the mind. Somebody could be weak through the mind. But when we're talking of sarcopenia, we're specifically addressing the weakness of the muscles. And I think that is something which makes it distinctively different from just the term weak. But maybe for our audience, if I would like to just deep dive a little more, I would say sarcopenia is just not a weakness of muscles in terms of their strength, but also in terms of their function and their muscle mass. So it's all three of them: the strength, the mass, and the function.
Okay. Okay, because you were telling me about a study that you did, recently, and you found that, the prevalence of sarcopenia or muscle loss had sort of jumped from 4% to 35% in younger adults. So, I mean, that's scary. So, I was just wondering if you could tell us, I mean, what are the reasons for this?
Absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about this study. So this is a cohort that we follow in the state of Kerala. It's been almost 10 years that we've been working with this cohort. It was initially established to try and identify how we can prevent diabetes in individuals from the community. But then we had done body composition analysis in these patients. So we did study their muscle mass, before we recruited them 10 years ago. And now that we see them 10 years later, we find several changes in body composition. But even 10 years ago, when we look at the muscle mass that was assessed through body composition analysis, we were surprised. Now, they were about 30 to 60 years of age, and we found that almost one in three had low muscle mass. Now, when we compare this to other existing data which was published from before, as you said, in younger individuals, we saw sarcopenia prevalence in India only about 4% and 5%. And for me, as a physician who was trained, say, 25 years ago, I was told sarcopenia is only something that I would see in the elderly, or rather very elderly. So, yes, I would say it was surprising to see this kind of statistics coming up from our cohort. The one word that comes to my mind when I look at this data is how under recognized is this problem in the Indian setting, but also answering the question as to why this is increasing. And I think, like a lot of our lifestyle diseases are increasing, be it diabetes, be it obesity, be it hypertension, a lot of this is to do with our lifestyle. We have become more sedentary over the years, our physical activity has come down, and our diets have also changed. So, a lot of reasons why this is increasing.
So, is it higher for just Indians or all worldwide? Is there a sort of a higher prevalence of sarcopenia, or is it more in India?
I think it's the awareness which has gone up also globally. So definitely that is one reason why this is increasing. But yes, because of the awareness, so therefore more screening is happening, and that is also leading on to a higher prevalence. But yes, I think the global recognition has gone up, so global prevalence has also gone up.
Okay. But you were talking about diabetes, how, there's a connection between diabetes and sarcopenia, but how? I mean, one is metabolic, one is muscle loss. What's the
Yeah,
connection?
they sound like two very different organ systems,
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
rightly said. Yeah, but then if we just understand diabetes and we learn about the hormone insulin, which is core to occurrence of diabetes, what we learn in physiology is that insulin is an anabolic hormone. So when I say it's an anabolic hormone, what I mean is it helps building up fat, protein, muscle, bone, everything. But in type 1 diabetes, where there is cross insulin deficiency, so there is no insulin, so we see there is no anabolic hormone, so therefore there is loss of muscle and muscle weakness. And in type 2 diabetes, where there is insulin, but for several reasons the insulin is not working, what in scientific terms we say as insulin resistance. And therefore, again, despite the anabolic hormone being there, it's not working. And so there is breakdown of carbohydrates, fats, the muscle breakdown also happens, and therefore sarcopenia. Well, that is one reason why diabetes has sarcopenia. But then I think there are several other reasons, right? From complications of hyperglycemia because of high blood glucose, the blood vessels getting affected, the bone getting affected, the nerve getting affected. All of that impacts the muscle. So if our nerves are not functioning well, again, the muscles will become weak. If our bones are less strong and the person, is not having a good strength to walk, good strength to do their physical activities, that itself would make somebody weak with respect to their muscles. So, several reasons why diabetes makes somebody prone for sarcopenia.
Okay, you were talking about how the prevalence, I mean, the awareness is more now. Even India just, sort of released a whole manual on sarcopenia this year, So I was just looking at, I mean, we've been focusing on bone health till now. Did we sort of miss the boat on this one? I mean, did we focus so much on bones that we sort of forgot the poor muscle? I don't,
I think it was always there, but I think it's come more into recent limelight. I would say is more because of the recent anti-obesity medications which have come into the market. So definitely a lot of social media buzz has happened, and people have started talking a lot about it, and that's why it's come to the limelight. But I think it's been there. I mean, we together with the South Asian group on sarcopenia published our guidelines before COVID. That was 7 years ago. So it's not that it wasn't there, it was there,
okay.
probably not so much talked about in public, and therefore the recognition of the disease was much lesser before.
Okay. Okay. So you brought up the anti-obesity drugs. That was my next question actually, because a lot of people are on GLP now, whether they have diabetes or whether they're obese or they're not. I do see it as a lifestyle thing now, But so what should somebody on these drugs be wary of when it comes to muscle loss?
Right. I think I've been in obesity medicine for some time, and even before we had these drugs, I would say that any quantum of weight loss, no matter the way you do it, be it by diet and exercise, be it by intragastric devices, surgery, whatever, any kind of weight loss that we have is never going to be an exclusive fat loss. There would always be some amount of muscle loss as well. Now, with the help of these drugs, these are fantastic drugs. And as you rightly said, it's not only for diabetes, it is for weight reduction. They are cardioprotective, more recent evidence with respect to even renal protection. So these drugs are being used by nephrologists, cardiologists, endocrinologists, physicians, a lot of specialists, and a lot of people are on these drugs. Also, some of these drugs are being misused just only for cosmetic purposes. But having said that, when we look at the science with respect to the usage of these drugs, anybody who's losing, say, about 10 kilograms of weight with these drugs, 70% of that weight is going to be from your fat, but 30% is going to be from your muscle. Now, this has been proven with respect to all the different types of drugs, and this is what I would say broadly is the distribution of fat and muscle loss. 30% of your weight loss with the usage of these drugs is going to come from muscle. But over here, I'd like to highlight a recent study that we recently presented at the International Congress of Endocrinology in Kyoto, in Japan. And I would say that what we found in our experience in the Indian patients, the muscle loss was much, much more in women as compared to men. The percentage was somewhere around 27% for men and 40% for women. And that was really astounding. And yes, there are reasons for that, definitely. in the Indian setting. We do not, have so much of physical activity, protein intake, and the awareness in some of the women who are using these drugs, despite, coming to a tertiary care center and being taught about, the physical activity from a physiotherapist. A dietitian is seeing them before we prescribe these drugs. Despite that, there is some more loss in women. So this is concerning.
So, why is it? Were these women like post-menopausal or something, or was it in were they in perimenopause, or what was the age group of the women? I mean, why was the muscle loss so much?
So the spectrum goes all throughout. It's not that they were all old, and they were young women as well. The age is matched between men and women. And despite that, this was there. Yes, a part of it could be related to the hormones, but part of it was also in general because, the kind of lifestyle, the kind of diet that we often consume, which is very, very protein deficient, is a reason that is contributing to this difference.
Okay, because so how important? I mean, what can one sort of do to prevent sarcopenia? What would you suggest?
Absolutely. So I think for all my fellow physicians and colleagues who've joined us to listen to us today, I'm sure all of them already know that when we prescribe these medications, it's just not writing this as a prescription. With this, we have to guide our patients as to what they have to do with respect to their diet and exercise. But for all the public who is listening to us today, I would say when we talk of sarcopenia prevention and management, there are three broad pillars that I'd really like to place in front of you. The first is the nutrition aspect. In the nutrition, what we really want to do is to make sure that you have the adequate amount of protein that you need for your body per day. It's very easy to remember how much protein you need. So, if you know your ideal body weight, you just need to have about 1 to 1.2 gram per kg of your ideal body weight. So, if your ideal weight is about 60 kilograms, you have to have 60 grams of protein every day, and that you can calculate very easily with the help of apps, with the help of AI, or when you buy any kind of food item, just glance through the quantum of protein that is there in that, and you make sure that you have about 60 grams if your
Okay,
ideal
just
weight is
sort of
about.
add it up to
Yeah.
60 or whatever your. Okay,
Anyway, so I think that's there. Simple example take home would be a simple egg white would give you 6 grams of protein. So that's
okay.
really good. A glass of milk, maybe 200 ml, would give you about 4 to 6 grams of protein again. So there are some good protein rich sources that you can have. On the other hand, apart from diet, we would also talk of physical activity. And in physical activity, it's not only just the aerobics, but the strength training which is required. What is recommended to prevent sarcopenia is essentially to make sure at least twice or thrice a week you do about 20 to 30 minutes of strength training, which can be something that you can do at your home also, maybe with the help of dumbbells, maybe with the help of elastic bands. Once you take the training from a specialist, it's very easy to do. Just takes about 20 minutes twice or thrice a week. And this is something which has been shown even in the Indian population as to how this can really help, improve your muscle
What's the
mass.
bare minimum you have to do? I'm sure everybody wants to
Absolutely.
know the bare minimum that they have to. What, 15 minutes a day? I mean, three times a week, 45
Yeah,
minutes a week?
that should be fine. 15 to 20
Yeah,
minutes. Yeah.
at least to hold it off the muscle loss. Okay,
Yes. And third pillar, as I was saying, was the medication aspect. Now, again, we have a lot of medications in the pipeline which will improve muscle mass, but what we really can do is to make sure that we have adequate calcium and vitamin D in our body. And, if you ask me how much calcium should an ideal Indian, maybe if I say a postmenopausal lady, should have, it comes to about 1200 milligrams of calcium per day, which you won't believe comes with 1.2 liters of milk per day. How many of us can drink 1.2 liters of milk per day? So, yes, many cannot. So, you have at least 300 to 400 ml of milk. Try and have curd, buttermilk, whatever suits you through your culture. But then, if you're not able to have that much amount, then you need to supplement with the help of a calcium tablet.
yeah, most of India is lactose intolerant. So, what would you suggest they do?
Absolutely. So there again, it's easier to supplement with tablets, but nowadays we do have a lot of lactose-free milk also available in the market. Again, the palatability, the cost, and all of that needs to be looked into. But yes, in that case, I would say a calcium carbonate tablet would do the job much easier. But at least to realize that we need to take so much of calcium, and that's 1.2 grams for postmenopausal women. But even 1 gram is required for you and me. And how much of 1 liter of milk do we consume is the important question. So that's the amount of milk and vitamin D as well. And despite India being such a sunshine filled country, paradoxically 70 to 80% of our population, even in our research from Vellore, we've shown is deficient in vitamin D. Maybe because we are a bit dark skinned, the UV rays that help make vitamin D under our skin is not so well absorbed. So again, meeting your doctor, when required, checking it. And if your calcium levels are normal, what we do require is about 1,000 to 2,000 units of vitamin D per day. It's commonly available in India as 60,000 units sachet, and once a month can be safely
Yeah.
taken if your calcium is normal. So yes, replacing your calcium and vitamin D is very helpful for your bone strength. We do have certain secondary causes of sarcopenia. Diabetes is one that you mentioned. And so definitely controlling that blood glucose level to optimal levels is something that can really help. And now when we have the other medications that improve muscle health, and some of them are really very close to coming into the market. And I think once they are there, they may be also helpful in people who really had very significant loss of muscle. They can improve that with them.
So, what do you do to sort of prevent, I mean, to keep the sarcopenia at bay or your muscle loss at bay?
I think that's very important. So it's just not important to preach, but to follow what you preach. So for me personally, I am an active swimmer. I do swim, and I think that's one good way of improving your muscle strength. Not for me, but yes, many times people do not find big spaces and opportunities to go for physical activity, but swimming is one which is helpful for many people, especially the hot climate. Vellore is just hot, hotter, and hottest all throughout the year, and it is helpful. It's helpful for people who have severe knee issues in terms of osteoarthritis. So again, swimming does not put the load on the knee when you pick up weights, or so that's helpful. So that's what I do. But yes, I think meeting a specialist a session once to understand what is the best person centered kind of an approach for that given person to improve your muscle strength. And once you learn it, you can do it lifelong.
Even if you're swimming, you still need to do the weights, or it's just swimming enough? I mean, as a form of exercise.
Right. So swimming, I would say, is a combination, but yes, adding some a little bit of resistance training would just be even better.
So I'm sure you must be getting patients who say, "I do 10,000 steps a day," or "Doctor, I walk every day for one hour. Isn't that enough? Why you want me to lift weights and all?" So what do you sort of what do you tell them?
Right. So I often, tell this example. First, let me talk about aerobic exercises because walking is predominantly aerobic, and I often show this example in my outpatient department where I have a medium-sized French fries.
Okay.
From whichever kind of department you buy it, how much exercise you need to do to burn that, and I get all kinds of answers. But then
Huh.
when you really realize it's 3 hours of walking or 1.5 hours of swimming or 1 hour of badminton that you need to play to burn that one portion size of french fries. An easy example that one can relate to is when people go to the gym and they run on the treadmill and they suppose run for an hour or so, and I ask them how many calories do you burn, and these days treadmills do show a calorie count as well when you're running, and they would say
Hmm.
120 or 130. And when they realize that this comes back with 1 cup of coffee, they need to understand that that 1 hour is not a license for them to have done a lot of exercise and then they can eat everything that comes in front. So yes, we need to understand the energy expenditure versus intake, and it's often exercise is good. It has a lot of benefits, but for weight loss we need to understand calories. And it's like, to burn 1 kilogram or to reduce 1 kilogram, we need to burn 7,000 calories. So that would mean so much more, running on the treadmill than one would imagine.
Where does the weight training sort of come into that? I mean, if they're just
Absolutely.
saying
So,
they only run, how do you bring in the importance of weight
right.
training?
Absolutely. So when you're talking of, just running or just the 10,000 steps, as you mentioned, it's not enough, or rather, it's not going to help you improve your muscle strength at all. It's just the aerobic exercise. It will have benefits in terms of calorie deficit, maybe reducing your blood glucose levels. It will do a good job. But to improve muscle, that is not something that's going to be helpful. So when we wrote the guidelines for India, in terms of for diabetes and for obesity, we talk of about 30 minutes of aerobic exercise. What you said is 10,000 steps or 8,000 steps, 5 days a week, but that's just the aerobic bit. And for the resistance training, as I mentioned before, at least 2 to 3 days a week, you should do your 20 minutes of resistance training, which could be elastic bands, which could be picking up weights, and very specific exercises to build up muscle. We cannot say that those 10,000 steps will improve your muscle mass. That's not going to happen.
Okay. So, what is the amount of muscle loss per, let's say, decade? Is it like about 6% or 10% loss per decade? I mean, from your 40s, if you had to calculate?
It's very, very variable. We've seen some people at their late 70s also extremely fit, and we've had patients, at 40s also having very, very poor muscle mass. So I think it's hard to say per decade loss in general because it is indeed very variable. There are limited studies from the Indian subcontinent to quantify that kind of a loss, but I would say on an average, most people, if you are saying the prevalence of sarcopenia is about 30% in the, in between 30 to 60, the prevalence would be close to 70%, after 60. So definitely there is more than 50% loss, and that happens over a period of
Yeah.
3 decades.
So, what's the excuse you hear from, let's say, 60-year-olds in terms of, I mean, this is so, in case, they've tuned in, how do they start weights if they haven't done weights at all? When you're in your 50s or 60s, how do you get started
Absolutely. I think,
without injuring yourself?
yeah. Very, very important. So I mean, the strength training comes just the last bit when we start doing exercise. At 16, my first step for starting exercise is balance training. I should not fall. That's my first step. The next step is flexibility enhancement. So I try and move my joints and make sure that, they get ready for the kind of exercise I'm doing. Third comes aerobic, and the last comes strength training. So what I'm saying is we go slow. We don't start with heavy weights on day one. We start with balance, then we start with flexibility, moving on to aerobic, and then finally coming on to resistance training. So we start slow, and that's something that really helps at that age to make sure we are on the right track.
So it goes balance, flexibility, aerobic, and then
Aerobic,
weight training.
lovely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what's the sort of wake up call for someone? How do I know that, hello, start now? What is, I mean, is there any measurement or is there any test or anything I can do to figure out if I've sort of headed or in, some stage of muscle loss?
Absolutely. And many times, at our age, it would be asymptomatic and we are so engrossed in our day to day routine. We are just not able to think and decipher that, we are not doing enough in terms of preservation and gaining muscle, which will be a big problem when we get older. So the problem is it's asymptomatic, but you're right. We have measures to, quantify muscle strength. A simple thing like a hand dynamometer, we can look at our hand grip strength, which gives us a very good idea. We can estimate the amount of muscle mass that we have through body composition analysis. Now these are widely available nowadays, even in the gyms. I've seen, their body composition analysis machine. You meet your endocrinologist or doctor, and he can order a body composition analysis, maybe with bioimpedance or DEXA scan, and that can help. And even if not that, something as
Yeah, at
simple.
home, something I can do right now.
Right. And, something like a walk test.
Okay.
We can do a 6 meter walk test and know your speed of walking. And if I know your speed of walking, then I can tell you how much is essentially your muscle function that you may have. And then that can be a very good, simple measure that anybody can do either in a clinic or even,
What is the speed I'm looking for?
right. So the speed is different for men and women, and the common dictum is about zero point 0.8 meters per second. That's what we would recommend somebody to be able to walk in a 6 meter given test. So by and large, zero point 0.8 and zero point 0.7 for men and women. But even if you want to remember just one simple measure, zero point 0.8 meter per second for a 6 meter walker test. But I think I'll tell you something even more simpler that anybody can do who's listening to us. and that's also very validated. And that's something called as the calf circumference. So calf circumference is just a measurement of my calf muscle in the leg from wherever it is widest. We don't need to remember any kind of bony prominence there. So wherever it is the widest, we just look at the calf circumference, and a cutoff of 34 centimeters for men and 33 centimeters for women. Anything below that will tell you you have low muscle mass.
And this is at every age. I mean, I can do it from 40s
Yes,
onwards.
yes,
So even if
yes.
I'm 70, it has to be between 34, I mean,
Ideally,
34 for men
yes.
and
Yeah.
33. Okay, so you really have to work hard at that one. Okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Kapoor. If you had to sort of leave our listeners with one sort of point to remember, or point to take, what would it be?
So stitch in time saves nine. It's a very old proverb, but I think all of us, be it young or old, if we do something for our muscle today, we would definitely, work towards a healthier future tomorrow. We would be more independent. We would be more strong, not only physically but even mentally if we have good muscles. So I think definitely look into your muscle health. Do what you can to improve it so that you have a brighter future tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kapoor, for joining us today. Don't tune out yet. It's time for the Nutrition Power Tip of the Week from nutritionist Pooja Makhija.
Let's stop overcomplicating healthy eating. We have turned nutrition into a list of rules, restrictions, superfoods, when actually the fundamentals are very, very simple. Eat enough, eat a variety of foods, eat adequate protein and fiber, please include fruits and vegetables, stay hydrated, and most importantly, enjoy the food you eat. You don't need a perfect diet. You need a good diet that you can repeat. Nutrition should fit into your life, not take over your life.
Thanks for tuning in to the Times of India Health Plus podcast. You can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or the TOI app. And if you have a health topic you'd like us to discuss, write to us at toihealth.plus@timesofindia.com. Stay healthy and see you next time.